Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to focus this morning on where we are with wildland fire management. Today we're going to be examining our national wildfire policy, and this includes the efforts of land managers to coordinate and collaborate with partners at the state and federal levels to improve wildfire response, prevention, and restoration of fire-adapted wildlands, the dynamic tensions between fire to sustain wildland health in certain ecosystems, and the need to minimize negative impacts to people and their homes from wildlife, and of course, the escalating federal costs of these activities, as you have noted. I think we all recognize that in a constrained budget environment, we have to figure out how we're strategic, how we use our limited federal resources wisely. Mr. Chairman, you've spoken to the historical increase that we're seeing in terms of wildland fires across the country, what is happening in this season. I think we're all anxious as we await the summer. And know that we will once again have forest fires burning across our country. Certainly as more and more people live in and around our forests, our grasslands, and other wildland areas, the fire-related challenges of managing these wildlands and the associated risk to life and property have significantly increased the complexity and the costs of assessing these wildfires. The total amount of funding appropriated for wildfire management has averaged $3.5 billion from FY08 to present. The majority of wildland fire management funding goes to the Forest Service, and in FY12, the Forest Service wildland fire management budget funding totaled nearly 41% of the total discretionary funds that are appropriated to that agency. It was because firefighting was eating up the agency's budgets and causing the agencies to engage in the fire borrowing, as you have mentioned, that we enacted the FLAME Act. And as you have noted, Mr. Chairman, as you described the purpose of that act, we have not seen the FLAME Act provide the funding above the 10-year, we have not seen the FLAME Act do what it was that we had intended when we had proposed that into law. Instead, the agency's budget proposals fund the 10-year rolling average using both suppression accounts and the Flame Reserve Fund. The May 2013 forecast for annual suppression expenditures put out by the agencies in season, as required by FLAME, seem to put the agency on the same trajectory as last year. And then it looks like we're once again going to be looking at fire borrowing. My understanding is that the Office of Management and Budget may be part of the problem here, but regardless of who's involved, what's happening, we need to figure it out. The agencies cannot continue to raid non-fire accounts to pay for firefighting. Now, this brings me to the aerial firefighting specifically. The increased use of aircraft is also contributing to the rising costs of our fighting wildfires. We all recognize that the agencies must have an aviation fleet for firefighting, but quite frankly, I'm a little perplexed at how much the agencies have struggled with developing and executing an aviation strategy, particularly when it comes to modernizing our aged air tanker fleet. We've seen numerous studies, reports, and plans over the years. Another GAO investigation is underway right now, but we still don't seem to have a real clear picture here on what a safe, efficient, effective, and sustainable national aviation program should look like. We ask the question whether or not a newer, more modern aviation fleet ultimately helps rein in firefighting costs and whether or not it can mitigate the devastating impacts of wildfire. I've been listening to the agencies for years saying that, yes, in fact, it can. I want to believe that, but really there hasn't been sufficient data collected on actual aviation firefighting performance to back up the claim and ultimately to support the acquisition of expensive new aircraft. Even the best business case has yet to pass muster with OMB. And then tied to the question of escalating suppression costs has been whether sufficient investment in hazardous fuels reduction and ecosystem restoration can reduce the risk of catastrophic fire and in turn reduce suppression expenditures. Here in Congress, we've already spent a tremendous amount of taxpayer money on fuel reduction activities. Back in FY01, Federal lands fuel reduction funding rose substantially to over $400 million. It continued to rise steadily through FY08 to nearly $620 million. Now the agencies are proposing substantial reductions in fuel reduction activities, and and Congress is having a harder time justifying increasing the expenditures. I think one of the reasons is that there is still some outstanding questions on where we make the difference here. So a great deal to be discussing this morning. Clearly, a considerable impact in our western states. I look forward to the discussion from the panelists this morning and the conversation that we will have from here. Thank you.
Thank you.